There are impediments from moving forward, and the impediments are coming from all three parties involved: the president, the Republicans, and the Democrats. The president has said since his 2008 election campaign that he will not raise taxes on any families earning less than $250,000, despite the fact that the IRS came out with a report in May that you probably heard about, that 45% of American families didn't pay any federal income taxes, right? Now, if you read that full report, there was actually a more interesting statistic, and I'm not sure why it didn't get as much press, but it actually said that 45% of American families are actually receiving a proactive benefit from the federal government. So not just paid zero, but actually received a benefit from the United States government. Now, I know there's some double counting there. You have Social Security clients who are still working and paying taxes, and so those people would be double counted. But bottom line, we find ourselves in this environment where 45% of American families are taking benefits out of the federal system, while 55% of American families are paying in. It's simply not a long-term sustainable situation. Now, the Republicans, they're not any better. They say we won't raise taxes on anyone, despite the fact that on an inflation-adjusted basis, the U.S. federal government is bringing in revenues at the same level as 1958, the lowest level since 1958. The Democrats, they drew their line in the sand around entitlement benefits, and they said we will not address this long-term debt situation on the backs of entitlement programs. So if you think about it, and I realize that makes all the sense in the world for 75-year-olds and 80-year-olds and even 60-year-olds who are close to retirement, but it doesn't make any sense at all for 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds who have plenty of time to adjust their planning for what that new entitlement reality would look like. So if that's the case, I can prove that this is the battlefield. These three impediments are really the battlefield that every issue our country is facing has to be fought on by looking back at the 2011 budget discussion. Does anybody remember when we were having the 2011 budget discussion? In April of 2011. Why is that interesting? That's interesting because the fiscal year ends in the United States on September 30th. So we are already 6 months into the fiscal year talking about the 2011 budget. If you remember the Republicans in their 2010 election platform, they said if you elect us to Congress, we will cut $100 billion out of the 2011 budget. That was their platform. They backed off that down to $60 billion when they started doing the real math on it. But and then they, depending on which Democrat you ask, they are prepared to cut anywhere from $0 to $10 billion out of the 2011 budget. Now we know they finally landed on cutting $38 billion out of that 2011 budget, but understand the implications of this. We came within 1 hour of shutting down the entire U.S. federal government for a 1% budget cut. $3.8 trillion budget, $38 billion in cuts, 6 months into the year, 1% budget cut.